A young woman must confront the sadistic supernatural forces behind an enigmatic
Enigmatic, even.
anemone. Oh, I'm not drunk. It's just cherry Coke. I don't know.
Words are hard. It's all right.
I know. The earrings are too heavy. It's pulling on my brain. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. In today's episode of Saturday Horror Movie Reviews, we're obviously not talking Hellraiser 2022. The background didn't give it away.
Oh.
I am joined in this episode with Robert Clark from Creepy and Geeky podcast, Geekthulhu, as it were, who did have to help me navigate this film a bit after I watched it. So, yeah, we're going to be talking Hellraiser 2022. I'm very festive. Earrings?
Yes.
I have to point out.
The earrings of pain.
They really are. They're very heavy. They're very heavy. Well, they're clay. He's a sculptor, so it's like they're heavy. But it's okay. They're perfect. I love them so much. These were done. I'm going to do a plug because I'm going to put his links and stuff in the description. These were done by Henrik Honk. He's from Sweden. He's on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm going to put all of his stuff in the bottom. He's a sculptor, painter, and he does phenomenal horror stuff. Not just stuff like this, like big ass horror sculptures and stuff. They're really cool. So I'll make sure to put his stuff in the bottom. Yeah. So let's see. Hellraiser 2022. A young woman must confront the sadistic supernatural forces behind an enigmatic, is that right? Yes. Puzzle box responsible for her brother's disappearance. Let's see. This has a 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb, a 67% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 71% on Google. That's actually a little bit lower than I was thinking it was going to be.
Yeah. Generally speaking, I'd seen most of the people on in the horror community, most of the people I follow anyway, have been pretty, good about giving it praise and everything. They've all, pretty well enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've only seen one negative thing so far. One.
Yeah.
Just based on who I follow, as well. So yeah, what would you give this out of 10?
Well, I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Okay.
So I guess that would be an 8 out of 10.
About an 8 out of 10. Yeah. That's where I fall as well. Yeah. I liked a lot of things about it, but it is not perfect by any means. So
yeah. I think for me, it's just, it doesn't really sit fully in my wheelhouse of things that I enjoy for horror. And so it was a great movie. And I like it a lot better. And I know this is sacrilege for everybody, but I like it a lot better than the first two Hellraiser movies, which are the only ones I've ever watched. So
yeah. As much as I don't know. So, okay. So I should definitely probably start with this as well, because I'm not a massive Hellraiser fan either. I liked the original. I have not read the book, and I did not really care for many others in the series. I've seen all of them. And they get rough.
Torture.
Yeah. And not what they promise good things, but it's not like it's rough. So I'm not like a massive Hellraiser fan. I've never read the Hellbound Heart. I don't know anything about the source material. I just know people tell me about it, so I should probably say that to start with. But I think that it felt, I will say this, to me, compared to the original and what I was thinking in my head, this felt a lot more mild than I was thinking it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a lot crazier.
Right. No, and I think that's, generally speaking, I think that's what a lot of people were expecting too. They were expecting, what they thought it was going to be a lot more horny. So
I thought so too.
Yeah, because I mean that's what you typically expect, I guess, out of the Hellraiser series. Although even out of the first two, I would say they weren't even really all that horny either. I mean, maybe the first one was, with the
Mhm.
relationship between Frank and Julia,
And
but,
yeah.
I mean, compared to today's standards, that wasn't super horny to me. Um,
Yeah.
but, yeah, this one was super tame compared to that, and I think there was a reason for that in terms of, where they were going with it
Mhm.
was the way they were describing it was more of that the Cenobites have gone beyond the sins of the flesh in terms of pleasure, where
Yeah.
they're seeking new sensations which go beyond pleasure and into the world of
Outside
pain.
of right.
So,
Yeah, well, when they shared why it was going to be rated R, the biggest thing that I kept hearing was, like, graphic nudity,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
thinking, like, okay, so graphic nudity means one of 3 things usually. It
yeah,
usually means a lot of sex,
yeah,
or it means there's a lot of nudity in torture scenes. That's also what graphic nudity, and because of our societal standards of nudity, or it
right,
means there's a penis. Like,
right,
that's
yeah,
usually what graphic nudity means. And as it turns out, it's not what I was expecting it to be. So I was just kind of surprised by that. I thought it was going to be a
right.
lot crazier.
Yeah, I
Um,
did too.
yeah. I also was expecting more gore. Not that there's not gore. There
Yeah,
obviously is. It's a Hellraiser movie, but it's to me, it was a little more tame than I was thinking. I thought it was gonna be like unwatchable in some
yeah,
scenes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
like Evil Dead levels of gore,
Buckets
yeah.
and buckets of gore. Yes. I thought
And yeah, and
um
it really wasn't, like,
no.
not in that way. A lot of the stuff was very everything was very restrained, and not in a bad way. It didn't make it less of a movie because of that.
No. And it also didn't feel less like a Hellraiser movie because of it either, which I think
Right. Yeah.
I know I'm going to bring this up when we get into spoilers or when we start talking a little bit more in depth, but there was something you said specifically that you liked about this one that I think is why it wasn't so much of the other.
Right.
So we'll get into that when we do spoilers. Yeah, I don't know what else I could really say unspoiled. I thought the cast was really strong. I didn't have really any
Oh,
problems with the
yeah.
casting. I loved the looks of the Cenobites. I thought they looked amazing. I
Oh,
loved the world
absolutely.
changing. Like all of that felt Hellraiser to me. Those
Yeah.
blues and reds, and I thought all of that was like super on point. Um, and then of course you have like some of the, the more like cookie cutter type characters, like our villain, not
Yeah,
counting,
yeah.
like the Cenobites, is a very cookie cutter villain. But I
Right.
think that for whatever reason that didn't bother me. It didn't bother me that he didn't have like a ton of depth to him
Yeah.
per se. It worked for the purpose of the story that was trying to be told.
Right.
So I didn't really have a problem with that. But um yeah, otherwise I don't really have much to add in Unspoiled. I thought it was a little tame. I thought the story had a lot more depth than I was expecting, which I mean as a
Oh, yeah.
compliment, and I thought the casting was pretty strong.
Yeah, I think that's what, the depth of the story was, in terms of being unspoiled, that
Mhm.
this story felt more complete to me, told more of a story about what the Cenobites were, what their world was, than I
Yes.
got in the first 2 movies combined, and
Yeah.
it just felt more accessible as well in a way
Yeah.
that the other 2 movies didn't, and,
Yeah.
and while being, like you said, while being kind of pulled back on the, and I think that the gore and any sexuality or anything like that, you could have amped it up for sure. But
Yeah.
I think that by pulling it back and everything and keeping it the story, that it did what it was. And I didn't feel like the 2-hour running time was overly long either, which was a surprise.
No. It was a quick 2 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very much so.
no, I agree with that. Well, and I had to split it up because I'm over 30. So I fell asleep watching it the first time, which is not a diss on the movie. It has nothing to do with
No.
me. I could
Yeah.
literally fall asleep in the middle of anything. When like one of my favorite movies, I'd fall asleep. Doesn't matter. But I literally I was like, I'm gonna stay up and I'm gonna watch all the things from this weekend. And that's not what happened. So I did have to watch it in 2 watches, which I do not recommend because when I watched the second half of it, there was some stuff that I lost in translation because there was not like the flow of it was disrupted.
Right.
Don't recommend that. But yeah, I agree that the 2 hours was well planned.
Right.
So yeah, I agree with that too. Yeah, so I guess we'll jump into spoilers and thoughts on other things that, if you have not seen Hellraiser and you've been living under a rock for the last week or 2
Or
months,
haven't gotten to it yet.
yeah, that's true too. Well, I was going to say, because I was going to say it's on Hulu. If you didn't know that it's on Hulu, it's
Yeah.
on Hulu.
Yeah.
It's been advertised forever. People are we're really pumped about it being a streaming thing. So, but it is on Hulu. Highly, this is definitely a movie I recommend seeing, especially,
Absolutely.
if you're a fan of the Hellraiser franchise. I don't know how many people are hesitant to give this a chance as Hellraiser fans. I don't know that I've heard any a lot of people say that, but if you are, I do think that this is a very good balance of what I think all remakes need. It's got the concepts from before that are familiar, that we're looking for. And then it's got all of these new things that that take us into these different directions that we have not been before. And it's a very good balance of old and new.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that if you're like me who, didn't really care for the originals,
Mhm.
and haven't seen very much of them,
Yeah.
and you're mildly interested in it, go ahead and check it out because it is, quite good, quite good.
Yeah. No, I liked it a lot. And I do think you're dead on about the story parts about understanding things a lot more clearly.
Right.
Yeah, story's a lot more cohesive in this one. I definitely agree with that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Hellraiser fans. Sorry. But yeah. Yeah, okay. So so if you have not seen the movie, we're gonna jump into spoilers. Go watch it. And then come back and watch us talk about the rest of it. Yeah, so I think so. Okay. So I talked about like the villain guy being like a cookie cutter thing. And one of the things I mentioned you had to kind of help me with because I didn't I was so confused by what his thing, I didn't understand the contraption and
Right.
I was like, I don't understand what the point was. And you explained it perfectly. So I'm going to ask you to explain that again for anybody like me that watched it and was like, I don't get it.
Right, so in the beginning, when
Yeah.
Roland Voigt, you know, has that, kid, uh, do the last, configuration,
Yeah.
get to the, Leviathan, configuration, he then
Mhm.
takes it and, becomes penitent and all that,
Mhm.
then it, goes to the, um, later part.
Mhm.
Uh, at that moment, what he's looking for, we find out,
Mhm.
because later on we see him with that device inside of him causing him
Mhm.
massive amounts of nerve pain,
Yeah.
is that because he chose what was it, liminal, he
Mhm.
chose sensation, because he wanted to feel something he had never felt before,
Mhm.
and so by doing that they put that device in him and gave him basically constant pain,
Mhm.
and new pain every time it did it too, because it would twist his nerves in different ways each time.
Mhm.
So that's what that was his choice, of
Yeah.
doing that because of course the Cenobites are going to take your choice and they're going to twist it. And
Right.
so
Duh.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're going to twist it to
Idiot.
their purposes. So
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I mean, he's thinking, sensation, he's going to get new heights of pleasurable sensation
Good
because
ones. Right.
again, we're talking the Hellraiser series, it's very much pleasure and pain mixed together
Mhm.
and making these deals with the Cenobites, like I said, is never a good deal. And
Right.
so, he got screwed on that deal, because, as I said before, the Cenobites have moved beyond pleasure and into pain sensations, which you see when uh, the high priestess talks to, or the high priest talks to the one girl. I can't remember her name. Nora, I think.
Oh.
She, and she's
Oh.
sticking the pin through her throat,
Yeah.
because she wants to hear the sounds she makes, because of, the pain is, making her give different sounds than, she would normally under those circumstances. So,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
they have, yeah, they've gone beyond. Um, and so at the end, what he does is he's trying to make a deal of, I don't want this, kill me, let me die. And
Mhm.
so Pinhead is like, no, uh, you can choose something else. And we think that you'll like power instead, Leviathan. And they give him Leviathan power. And basically what that did was, at you know, it to me, it looks like he's becoming the new Chatterer, by
Yeah,
turning
I
him
agree
into
with
a
that.
Cenobite. So,
Yeah, because that whole like piece right here and the
yeah,
way,
where they
yeah,
ripped his
no, I
mouth
agree
out.
with that. Yeah.
Because the previous Chatterer was obviously killed by her, oh my god, I'm completely blanking
Riley.
on all the names. Riley.
Hmm.
Um, so that was that I think that's what they were doing, was replacing one with the other. So
Yeah. And so I think going back and looking at it again, what I confused, because again, I split it up, which was a mistake
right,
the first time. So I think what I confused is when he is talking before he chooses his reward, he's
right,
talking about the final configuration and he
yeah,
says Leviathan. And so
right,
because he said it, I was like, I don't get what that power means. I don't know what that means.
yeah,
But I just missed that what he was talking about was the configuration of the puzzle box, not
right.
what he was asking for. And so when that happened, I was like, I don't
Well,
understand. Like I was
Leviathan is
confused.
also the god, the name
The
of the
God,
god.
yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah. And so one of the things that I really liked, and unless my memory is just like, I don't remember them using the box to kill other Cenobites in previous Hellraisers. Do we know if they've done that before?
I'm not positive if they did or not, in the first two, and those are the only ones I've seen. I don't
Okay.
believe so, but I'm
So,
not positive if it's ever happened in any of the other ones.
yeah, if you're a Hellraiser fan and that has happened and I'm completely wrong, I'm so sorry.
Make sure to leave a comment.
Yeah, leave a comment. Don't send your priest. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
But I thought I took it as that being a very new thing, which I actually thought was really clever
yeah,
because I kind of like this weird look, like toe the line between like the monster and humanity, right? So like you become a monster when you mess with these Cenobites anyway. And so like this kind of push and pull of like monsters not being monsters and people being monsters and this kind of thing. And so the concept that this monster was humanized in that moment, I actually really liked that. Like when it happened and I was watching it, I was kind of like, huh, I kind of like that. That's clever. It didn't go so well the second time around, but I liked it. I liked it the first time. It was really effective for me as like a viewer. I was like, oh, that's actually I like that concept a lot. I don't know. There was just something about it. And I love that she Riley got cocky after that. She was like, "Oh, I got this shit in the bag." And then she like
yeah,
was like, "I'm gonna." And then she goes out there, and it's like, and they're just looking at her like, really, bitch, you think we done made it this far? Like,
yeah.
what humans outsmart us? And it almost made me wonder if, like, and maybe this is just reading too much into it, but it almost made me wonder if if Pinhead let that happen on purpose. Like, if it was just this
Um,
thing where they were like, oh, okay, sure, why not? You know, like
and I'm sure she was willing to sacrifice one of her, subordinates
minions.
in case, if something happened again, just on the off chance, sure, whatever. You know, Pinhead will get what they want in the end. So,
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and I think that that worked, I just really liked that. Like, I liked the
yeah.
lead into that where, that happens, their body is like, whoosh, and they're gone, and then later when they try to duplicate that, it's like, "Ooh," like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I liked that part a lot. I thought that was really clever.
Now I'd like to see them in the sequels. I'd like to see them have people choose some of the other options as well.
Yes.
We basically kind of get to see, we see Leviathan, we see Liminal
The
in
liminal, yeah.
that guy's version, but we also see, in a way, we see Lament, because at
Yeah,
the end she's left with her grief and
with
with
her
the
grief.
knowledge of who had to die to get her to this point. And
Yeah.
so I'd like to see them try the other ones, to see what people get, with
Yeah,
Gore and, Laudorent, and so that I think that'd be a lot of fun to explore those other options,
I agree.
even
Because I
Lazarus,
would
like she was about to do. So
Yeah, because because their interpretations when those things are
exactly.
chosen, it's not black and white. Like you really don't know what's going to happen. And I think that would be great if they continue to make them. I'll be honest with you, I'm really impressed with Hulu movies in general. The last two have been killer. Like this one and Prey,
Oh
like they're just
yeah, Prey was
so
so
well
good.
done. I
Yeah,
loved Prey. But
Prey
yeah,
was
like I also kind of like, even though this is like a super massive trope, especially as Scream fans, this whole like love interest twist thing, like
yeah,
I really just didn't. I'm mad. I'm mad about this. Like, I
yeah.
really just didn't even see that coming. Like
I didn't see it coming either.
I
Oh,
was just like, it was too obvious. Like if you were going into it thinking slasher, you would have been like, oh, he's involved, right? But
right.
I'm like, no way. He's like, I love you when he's not supposed to say it. And she's just like, yep, that's not going to work. And so, like, you have this weird relationship thing, and she's the cool, edgy, distant one, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And I don't know, like, the way that they start showing us is I think his name's Trevor and
Trevor.
Riley. The way, because they show us that first interaction of them together, I just was like, I just didn't even see it coming. So when it happened, I was
Yeah.
like,
No, I bought
oh,
in.
no.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was gonna happen.
No, I bought into it completely as well, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wasn't mad about it. I mean, it
No,
fine, sure. Like it was good enough for
it's
a
a good
reason
twist, yeah.
for.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, I liked the and like I said, for unspoiled earlier, like I think that the design, I mean, obviously Pinhead looks like Pinhead, right? But I
Yeah,
think that the other Cenobites are are the same thing as I feel about this story, very old and new together. Like
yeah,
they're all reminiscent of what we're familiar with, but they have
right.
these like new, like things about them that are different than before. Especially dialogue wise, which I was really happy with. I thought all that was really well written.
No, I agree. And, the quote unquote costuming of the Cenobites was like really good because, you know, every other version of this has been like, PVC, fetish wear basically. And, and this had that same look, but this was flesh and blood instead.
Mhm.
I love that, as, whenever whenever you got a close up on Pinhead's hand, you could see that her like, nails were painted, but it looked like it was painted with blood. And it wasn't painted like well. So it was just like her hands had been dipped in blood and
Dipped in
dried
blood.
that
I
way.
loved that. I noticed that as
And
well.
yeah, and I love that all the other Cenobites also had the pins in them. So,
Yeah.
like, they all had pin work in them. So it
Mhm.
didn't just as much as Pinhead was obviously Pinhead, all
Mhm.
of them had some form of that,
Mhm.
which makes sense, pinning the flesh to their body. So,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's ever been used. I'm sure it has before, but I love that when she pulled out the pin out of her head and used that to, like, stab the girl in the neck. So,
Yeah, I
I
really
thought that was
liked
a
that too. And then
yeah.
I don't know if this is intentional symbolism, but I also took the pins in the other characters as this like level of control, like of almost like
Yeah,
ownership. Like this is a piece of me that now is like
yeah,
it seemed like a physical representation of their connection to their
right.
priest. Um
Like their pinheads, you know,
yeah.
subordinates. Yeah,
Yeah, and
and
I
maybe if
thought
there's
that was cool.
another high priest, then with something else, then their subordinates would have
Would
some other
have something relevant to that,
affectation to them. Yeah,
like colors in the army. Like, you know.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I liked that too. I also thought that the world changing, and I mentioned this earlier, the
Oh
colors,
yeah,
I just felt like it was like it's like I said, the new and the old go so well together because I felt the nostalgia points I think I was meant to feel for this thing, but with
yeah.
this like new vision, I don't know, it just all of that went so well, but the coloration and the world transformations, they definitely look a little better now, but that's okay. All of that was really well done, and I also liked that even though we get access to the visuals of the Cenobites, they're always in the shadows.
Yeah, Pinhead was really good in that way too. Like we got to see Pinhead like once, like a couple of times
Yeah.
towards the end, and got real good look at them more towards the end when they're like at the house, and they're all in there and
Oh,
they've all gotten
mhm,
in. So I mean that
mhm,
was nice to be able to see a few good glimpses of them. But yeah, even
mhm.
still, it was you know real quick. You weren't getting,
Mhm.
and which helped the keeping them mysterious and monstrous. So
I was just gonna say that same thing, and it also because one of the things that happens too often with these things is you become desensitized and they lose their creep factor because you've
hmm
seen them too much, and you
right,
don't see them. They're not in a lot of scenes overall, but the scenes they're in, they're very covered, like, most of the time, and then, and then it's a slow introduction to Pinhead because we see them off in the distance, and then they're up and then we finally can see the blacked out eyes, the goopy fingers, like, but it takes a
yeah,
while to see all of that stuff.
right. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that that's a huge part of what makes this movie work so well is
Yeah,
that you're only getting glimpses, and like you said, with the changing of the world, where not just the walls are moving, but like when they're driving and the ground is giving away like
yeah,
beneath them,
behind them.
and
Yeah.
then when Leviathan comes at the end, there's all these walls, almost a labyrinth built around Roland Voigt's house. So
Mhm.
I thought that was very cool.
I
So
liked that too. That reminded me of the is it the hospital scene in the second one?
I think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Where
it
yeah,
reminded me, and that's what I'm saying, like, these it hits, like, all these things because, like, it just I don't know. I didn't go into it thinking I wouldn't like it. I
right,
didn't really go in with very many expectations, but I had my guard up a little because I know I'm a prude. I'm a little weird about the graphic nudity stuff. And I was like I wasn't sure how far it was willing to push that with
right.
like a being a 2022 movie. So I was like, but I actually left it feeling really happy with it. I really enjoyed
Yeah,
it overall. I thought it was a great movie, remake or not. I thought it was really well done.
yeah. Yeah, even if it had just been a continuation of the series or whatever, I
Yeah.
think that, it was a well done continuation of the series. And honestly, it could fit as a continuation of the series as well.
I
It
was just
doesn't
thinking the same thing. Mhm.
it doesn't negate anything that's come before.
Nope.
So it's a completely just it's a new version of what it is. And given what we've seen, who knows? I mean, this could be a different high priest, So it's not necessarily that this is the Pinhead. It doesn't negate any of what we've seen before.
That's true.
So, if you
That's true.
choose to, if you really love the other ones and you want to fit this into all that, that works. So you don't
Yeah.
have to. But I mean, I think from what I've seen from most fans of it, like I said before, that most people seem to really enjoy it, and I haven't seen
Yeah.
very many negative things.
I've only seen the one I think I may have sent it to you, but one negative. Did I
Yeah,
send you a
yeah,
picture of that one, I
yeah,
think?
yeah.
But otherwise, like and then one of the, horror authors I follow on Twitter is, like, an insane Hellraiser fan. Like, people tag her in anything related to Hellraiser, and she loved it. So I feel
That's
like,
awesome. Yeah.
it's that'd be like taking my word about the new Poltergeist, knowing that Poltergeist is like my number one most influential horror movie of all time. Like, when you have that much love and passion for something, and then you
Right.
also loved the remake, like I feel like
Yeah.
it just kind of validates that it was well done. You know what I mean?
That's me with Evil Dead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So exactly. You have a love for it. They remake it. You have a love for that. And it's like, it just to me speaks volumes. So I also think too that this is a really great film for a newer audience because
Yes.
it does have a little bit more of, if you've never seen Hellraiser and you go and you watch it now, it's not going to hit the same as it did when it came out if you'd seen it for the first time.
Yeah.
So this kind of brings in like just a newer generation of fans, and I think
Right.
like I don't know, I just really have a lot of complaints. If I had to, like, I don't even know if I could say anything complaint wise. I think I don't know. Like I really enjoyed
Right.
it. I thought it was good.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, the only reason why I don't give it 5 stars is because it's just not my jam. It's I enjoyed it for what it is. I'll probably watch a sequel
Yeah,
if
I
they
would
do a
too.
sequel to this.
100%.
And I'll
Yeah.
be eagerly awaiting that. Because this one was actually really good. But
Mhm.
it's not something I'm going to put in heavy rotation compared to, a lot of my other,
Yeah,
big
well,
favorites.
And I don't know that, to your point, it's not gonna be it doesn't have a lot of rewatch value for me either. Like, I think
No.
it'll be something I watch every once in a while to just go back to, or I'll probably watch it again before a new one comes out or something like that, but, to your point, it's definitely not something, but that's just because so this is what's kind of funny about I kind of was in denial about my love affair with gore for, like, a really long time. And then I saw the Evil Dead remake, and I was like, "Okay, so this is a thing." And
Oh,
I
one's so full of gore.
it's so gory, but, like, the best, like, I it's so
Oh,
well
yeah.
done, and
No, so good.
I really truly think that if this had been gorier, more gory, I actually
Warrior.
would have rated it higher. I think that's, like, the
Oh,
only
yeah?
thing I was, like,
Yeah.
missing, but otherwise, I really liked it a lot. I'm very excited to see what happens with Voight,
Yeah.
and, like, I really hope that I think that this did well enough, and it's not Netflix. I would be very surprised if we
Right.
didn't get a second fucking Netflix.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, but no, I really enjoyed this film. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Very, very much so. I think that, exactly what you said. It won't go into heavy rotation, like I said. But it'll be something that I can watch again down the road when I'm feeling in the mood for a Hellraiser uh, um, type of movie. I'll just put this one on. I likely won't revisit any of the original stuff. This will be my go-to for that. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I agree with all of that. So go
Like I
watch
said, for
it.
me, for the biggest thing for me was that I now understand the lore, a lot more than I ever did with the first 2. The first 2 were so confusing and so thin on what the
Story.
Cenobites were and everything, and of course, even this is still fairly thin on what the Cenobites are and what their world is and everything, but just it gave me so much, just enough of what I needed to understand the story.
Well, and to your point, I think a lot of it is like, I don't think we're spoon-fed the story. I think it is given to us in very brief but well-written pieces of dialogue.
Yeah,
And I think that that is, I think that that part was done brilliantly because I don't feel like they talk too much. I don't feel like they said a bunch of stupid things that don't make any sense, which happens all the time. Like what they said was short, but it had weight to it. Every
yeah,
single time that they chose to speak, it was because they had something to say. And a lot of those conversations that were had with the Cenobite specifically, that's where we got a lot of it. I mean, we got some human explanations too, but I think that a lot more of understanding of their motivation and where they're coming from and that kind of thing came from things that they said, which is just really well
absolutely.
written.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and I think again, going back to it, that if
mhm,
you're new to this world, you've never seen anything Hellraiser. This is, I think, a very easy to understand, great introduction to the world and the
100%
lore.
agree.
So,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
if you want to explore more of it, I personally would say watch this first, get kind of an understanding of things,
And
then
then
go back and watch the original stuff because again, it doesn't contradict anything. It's not retelling any of
it
the same
doesn't ruin
stories.
the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I hear from most Hellraiser fans that just really 1 and 2 are the best ones to watch anyway, and if you don't watch anything else beyond those, you're okay.
Yeah, those
So,
are the only 2 that I liked, and I really
yeah.
still preferred the first over the second. They got nuts after a while. They got really bad, like, ugh, but yeah, no, I think that's a good point too. Yeah, and I think it's like sometimes that's like a really big mistake remakes make. They just
Yeah,
assume everyone knows everything, and then they don't explain anything, and then
yeah,
you lose the new audience, and then you piss off the people that like were looking forward to knowing more or seeing if there's like something new added or whatever. So yeah, that part was really really smart.
yeah,
Yeah,
agreed.
cool. Well, thanks for coming and talking Hellraiser.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm really glad that you explained this. I just missed it. I just straight missed it. I was like,
Yeah,
I don't understand like what is going on. He reminded me, this is so stupid. I have to say this though, because this is my like so one of my favorite shows of all time is Futurama. Like Futurama is
okay.
the only reason I pay for Hulu because I love that show. It's like my favorite
Yeah,
show. I like know everything there is to know about Futurama. And so, but there's an episode. Have you watched Futurama?
I've watched it in
Okay.
like a long time ago. I
Like, you've
haven't
seen
seen it in
some,
a
though. You're at
long
least
time.
familiar with what it is. Well,
Yeah, I'm familiar with the premise.
yeah, so there's this episode about, where they're trying to find out how to get to, Leonardo da Vinci's, like, missing, invention, right? And there is this wooden robot that's, like, in the tomb, and this robot is, like, meant to prevent them from finding the secret. But what's funny is in his chest, because he's wooden, because the time frame he's
Right.
from, he has a mouse wheel like this, and so there's a mouse has to run in the wheel for the robot to work. And so as soon as I saw that contraption in the middle of
Yeah.
his chest, I was like, oh, it's like the robot. Fun fact,
I
it is
did not know
not.
where you were going for all that, but that's funny.
It was worth it, right? Sorry, I know
It
tangent.
was.
I was like,
No, it was worth it.
but all I could picture was this goofy ass looking like robot. I'll put a picture of him somewhere so you just see the
Yeah,
comparison.
there you go.
But there's like but that's what it reminded me of, was like a mouse wheel, like pull, like, and it goes, and as it's going, it's
Right.
like pulling, and it's just a very dark way for me to look at it. But that was funny. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's all I have. I'm done. But yeah, so I will put Robert's information below about his podcast, where to find him on the socials. I think, oh, I know what I'm doing. So my next Saturday horror movie review is with Kat Valor, and we are talking You're Next, which is one of my favorites. So make sure you come back for that one. And yeah, that's all I have for this one. So check out Robert's stuff. If you've made it this far and you haven't seen Hellraiser, I'm not really sure what's going on. Make sure you watch it.
Yes.
Yeah, hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. Enjoy your week, and I'll see you in the next one.